Good morning. It's a pleasure to see each one of you here this morning. I would like to welcome you to our August the 5th meeting of the Board of Commissioners. We want to also welcome those who are viewing us by way of television. I now call this meeting to order, and we shall have our roll call. Thank you. We will now have our invocation by Commissioner Hammond and our pledge by Commissioner Owens. May we all stand, please.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we are grateful and thankful for another beautiful day and for your many, many blessings of life. Bless us with leadership and let your Holy Spirit guide us through this meeting today, that all that is said and done will be done for the benefit of the citizens of our county. Thank you for a privilege to serve, and bless us, Lord, in mind, body, spirit, and soul. Amen.
Amen.
Let's face the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to approve our agenda? I have a motion. Second?
Second.
Let's vote. Thank you. We shall now have our public addresses to the board. Do we have anyone that signed up?
No, sir.
Have anyone that would like to address us? Okay, thank you. We shall now move on to our items for report, and our first report will be our June 2013 tax collections report from Ms. Booker.
Good morning. The Pitt County combined collection rate for the taxes through June 30th, 2013 was 98.08, and that's an increase of 0.93 as compared to the rate of 97.15 for the 2011 taxes collected 1 year ago, and an increase of 2.42 over the rate of 95.66 for 2010 taxes collected 2 years ago during fiscal year 2010-2011.
Very good. Thank you. I'd like to commend you and your department for that excellent trend in increasing the tax rate from 95.66 2 years ago up to 98.08 this year. That's very good.
Hard work on the staff. Thank you.
Keep that good work up. We will look next year, and hopefully that trend will continue. Do I have a motion that we accept this report?
I move we accept it.
I want to ask a question,
Yes.
too. Number one, the new tax law pertaining to vehicles
Yes, sir.
that the county has implemented,
Yes, sir.
how is that going to affect the money as it comes in? Because we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars.
We will be getting reports of who has renewed and who has not, and we will be able to track it better as it comes in. This is new to us, but the end result is that you're sent invitations to renew, and you will pay your bill and your tag at the same time. So this should see an increase in the motor vehicle tax collection rate.
That's the reason I'm asking, because I know I've already got it too. And there are so many citizens here in Pitt County that do not understand that. And I think we need to kind of educate them that this is the new way, and we might as well face it. And I know it's going to affect the amount of money, when do we get it in, and so forth, the tax structure that we have, because we're dealing with, I don't know how much money do we get on vehicles and boats and things such as that? Do you have that?
Yes, in your settlement statement, which is the next item to report, you will see a breakdown on motor vehicles. The first section, which is the next item for report in the annual settlement section, will show subtotals of fiscal year item section 1, item E, fiscal year 2012-13 RMV taxes billed, $95,494.18.
$9.5 million.
Now, so you were talking about approximately $10 million. The reason, see, these people now I know are buying pickup trucks, $40,000 to $50,000. When I built my house, it was $23,000, just a house. Cars and trucks now are costing more people than 20 years ago than the homes. I don't know whether you realize or not. So we are talking about millions of dollars. And, but I just want to bring it out. But my main concern is to let the people, the citizens, especially the elderly people, that don't understand this new way that we're going to have to go now to pay for our taxes before we get our license. Is that not correct?
Well, you pay at the same time.
You're going to pay them at the same time.
Yes. And we do have a segment coming out on Pitt TV about tag and tax together. We have been to each one of the municipalities and to both of the license plate agencies. There's one in Greenville and one in Farmville. And we have distributed material, frequently asked questions. We have it scrolling on our two terminals in the tax collection department that gives out that information that people can look at while they're standing in line. We have been inserting into our monthly bills about it all along as well.
Is it possible that if we have 2 or 3 vehicles that they can be combined together and do it all at one time instead of having to go out there and stand in a long line?
Unfortunately, that is the way DMV sets it up, and it would have to be changed with our legislators.
Okay. I have no more questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, with any further questions on this issue? Did we have a second on that?
No.
So I need a second.
Second?
Okay, we got a second on the motion. Any further discussion? Let's vote. Okay, thank you. The next item is also 2 reports from Ms. Booker, the fiscal 2012-13 annual settlement, and then the order of collections for 2013 and 14.
You have several pages that will show you what we have done all during the year in your annual settlement. And then the last page of that is the order to collect for the next year.
Any questions of Ms. Booker on those? Do I have a motion that we approve those?
I say move.
Motion, second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you. We shall now have our, thank you.
Okay, does that take care of the order to collect?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We shall now have our manager's report. Mr. Elliott.
Thank you, Chairman Garris. Commissioners, several items to report. The first item is your next meeting dates. The third Monday in August, which will be August 19th, you'll have your regular meeting at 6 p.m. Then in the month of September, you'll have one meeting that'll be on September the 16th at 9 a.m. Item B is to remind you of the annual statewide conference for the NCACC, the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. Guilford County will be hosting the conference in Greensboro, August 22nd through 25th, and I believe the clerk has down those commissioners who have expressed a desire to attend. Item C is the NACO, which is the National Association of Counties. Wanted to offer to either Commissioner McLawhorn or Commissioner Webb an opportunity just to, if you had any comments you want to make about the annual conference in Dallas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Manager, that the conference was attended very well by over 2,300 fellow county commissioner and elected officials across the nation. This theme was Why County Matters. I thought it was one of the best conferences that we've attended. Was happy to see Dwayne Holder representing also the county. He intermixing and collaborating a lot with fellow county commissioners and his colleagues. One of the other highlights of the program was the fact that we won an award. Pitt County was recognized at the awards, the first annual awards luncheon that we've had in collaborating team building for our district park here in Pitt County, Alice King District Park. I thought that was very, very well attended. And so another major issue of discussion was the conference was NACO's effort to protect the tax exempt status on municipal bonds. Understanding that municipal bonds enable state and local government to build essential infrastructure projects such as schools, hospitals, and roads. So that was a great emphasis. And another part that I thought that was interested is that the idea is to make it mandatory that for every kindergarten to 12th grade classroom in America to teach a course annually on civility and nonviolent resolution, how to deal with dispute rather than going into that mode of violence in our school system, killing people and having a lot of death among our nation youth. So it was very well attended. I thought it was very good workshops, and I was very happy to be a part of it.
Very good, thank you.
Next item would be item D on the agenda, the Planning Department announcing on their behalf an emergency solutions grant funding that they're seeking. This is the second round of funding, and this is in conjunction with the county's 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness. Basically, this is funding that will allow them to help with the plan to end chronic homelessness. This does require a $25,000 match, which was accounted for in the county's budget in the springtime, so we have accounted for that. This will allow us to continue what they call their rapid rehousing program, which gets obviously chronically homeless people off the streets into permanent housing. The next one is item E is a 2013 Burn JAG, which is the Justice Assistance Grant by the Sheriff's Office. This is in conjunction with the City of Greenville. This is one that we have jointly applied for in years past, and they've asked me to bring this to the board's attention as well. Next item on the agenda is item F. This is a very good news item for Pitt County. We've been awarded HMGP funds. These are Hazard Mitigation Grant Funds from FEMA, which is the Federal Emergency Management Agency in Washington. These will be to actually purchase 2 properties which are flood-prone, or probably more than flood-prone, flooded properties in Pitt County that we will be able to buy out. Also, the Planning Department is seeking, in conjunction with this buyout funding, other federal funding that would address hopefully other repetitively flooded properties in Pitt County. So hopefully we'll see more dollars come down other than the 2 that we will be actually being able to purchase and alleviate their flooding woes per se.
Okay, did you have a question?
Yes, I do.
That's it.
I have 2 or 3 comments. Number one, the $25,000 that you're talking about for the homeless, does that go to the homeless shelter?
No, sir, that goes to our plan, 10-year plan to end chronic homelessness here in Pitt County. We do partner with the homeless shelter, but no, this money is not going to the homeless shelter.
All right. The property from FEMA that you're buying out, we have all this property already that is owned by the federal government, and the county is responsible for, we get no taxes, but the county is responsible for taking and keeping this land in order. Who gets control of this property that you're buying out? Is it work the same way, James? In other words, it would be under the sponsorship of the county. We're responsible, but
We'll try to get an adjoining property owner to enter into an agreement
like we
to
did
care
in the
for-
past.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's all.
Item G, if there's no other questions, boards which we're currently recruiting for citizens of Pitt County to apply and hopefully become considered to be placed on one of these boards: the Pitt County Child Fatality Prevention Team, the Greenville Board of Adjustment, the Aiden Planning Board, the ECBH, or East Carolina Behavioral Health Board, which is also the local management entity, and lastly, the Pitt County Planning Board. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
I got one more comment. I'm gonna try to be quiet. We always advertise on the advisory board for the nursing homes.
Correct.
We always show it. So I'm asking the senior citizens of Pitt County, we need volunteers still for that, because these nursing homes are very important. It's important that we have people to go in there and check. So we are asking you, if you listen to me, volunteer, help these people out. Just by you going into that home means a great deal to these citizens that are there, that never see anybody to come to visit them. So volunteer and help us out. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Next item on our agenda is a report from Mr. Perry regarding North Carolina Fast.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I take this as a great opportunity to update you on NC Fast. North Carolina FAST stands for North Carolina Family Assessing Services Through Technology. We began December the 17th taking application, recertifications, and changes in a new system. We currently average over 2,000 research a month. What the research had to be done was converted first and then processed into a new system. We had what we would call a learning curve for our staff because this was a whole new program that the staff had to learn, and then they had to become familiar with the computer system as well. So we saw changes in the way that we currently do our business. We are trying to become current in our processing. What we did for April, May, and June, we took our 4 fastest processors and put them working on that backlog. At the present time, we have 51 cases still left from April, May, and June. 21 of those cases will be keyed today, and 30 cases will be pending because we're still waiting on information to come in from the clients. For the July, we have 682 cases that we're still working on for July. What we plan on doing is taking the July cases along with the August cases and working those together. We will set aside 2 days a week where our staff will work on the July cases, and what we would do with our August cases, as the client bring in the information, we will go ahead and process those cases. To help us with this process, we have set up a customer care unit where clients are able to call in and talk to someone about the status of their case, which allows our caseworker to continue to process the cases without interruption. We get a status report each day from our caseworkers to let us know how many cases that they processed that day so we can keep a running total of that. If the system is down or for some reason they're not able to process cases, then they let us know what they did during that day so we can keep a running total of that. They report to us each day as to the status of their work, and we have now started reporting to the state that they will get us on Fridays. We will send them a weekly report to let them know where we stand as well. Today is our first day where we have switched to what we call a universal worker. You know, we talked about work support strategies where when a client come into the agency that they would talk to one worker as opposed to talking to someone for food stamps, talking to someone for Medicaid, child daycare. So we have made that switch today. This is a whole switch in how our workers will be doing business as well as our supervisors. Because before we worked in a silo situation where if you did food and nutrition service, that's all you did. If you did Medicaid, then you just did Medicaid. But now we're moving into the process that the worker will be responsible for doing food and nutrition service, Medicaid as well. And what we have done is align both for our intake units and our review units together so that the staff can co-train each other into the different processes. So we're looking forward for that. It will be a rough going initially because you have staff once again having to learn different roles and responsibilities. The end result is that it would be a better system for the client. It'll be a better system for the agency because once you report a change to food and nutrition services, it automatically updates your Medicaid. It automatically updates your child daycare, so you don't have to continue to report the same information. We are planning to be current by the end of September. That is our goal. We have set aside, if our plan work and the computer stays up, we're looking to be current by the end of September the 30th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Mr. Perry?
You can go on.
Mr. James?
I wasn't going to say anything, but I have to. I'm on the board, of course, as Mr. Perry knows. I have several questions, Mr. Perry, pertaining to the combination, of course, of the NC Fast. Are all of your employees at this present time prepared to do Medicaid and food stamps?
No, they're not prepared to do Medicaid and
When are
food
you
stamps.
going to have them
We,
prepared?
our staff begins today working together. What the food and nutrition service staff would do was help the family and children Medicaid staff to learn their system. And the family and children Medicaid staff would help the food and nutrition service staff to learn what they do. So they're jointly working together to learn each other's programs.
That's where I have a problem.
Yeah.
We have been working on this how many months?
We started working on this, and December the 17th is when we started NC Fast.
Right. Now I want to ask some more questions too. How much overtime have you had in the department, since we've been on the NC Fast?
I do not know that. I
Well,
can get that for you.
over 300 hours, of course. How many workers do you have that's making overtime now, comp time? That's is a very much concern for this board because, as you know, if they stop, we would have to pay this money to these employees. Do you know that question?
I do not know how many staff we have working overtime, but in order for staff to get the work done, they have to work overtime because we cannot get the work done by working 8 hours a day.
That's my trouble, Mr. Perry. It's all of our trouble. We want these people to have good productivity. The only way that they can have good productivity is that they understand what it is and what they're doing. And that's the reason, of course, that this board voted to take and to hire extra personnel. And we request from Raleigh, Mr. Chairman, as you know, to send people down here to train the personnel that we do have.
Mr. James, we are currently monitoring each staff every day as to their productivity.
And
And if
that's-
the staff is not up where they need to be, then we are working with that staff to get them where they need to be. So each day when the staff turn in their report, they letting us know how many cases they processed that day. And if they were not able to process cases, then they tell us the reason why. So we are monitoring on a daily basis why each staff is complete in a food and nutritional service.
This is good, and I'm proud of your group for doing this. But see, what disturbs me, we should have been doing this a long time ago, so that because we've got these people that get food stamps, and these county commissioners are getting phone calls pertaining to that, as some of you know. And we want the Department of Social Service, we want our people here in Pitt County to be just as good as they are in Beaufort County. How do we stock up as far as Pitt County is concerned with Beaufort County and the counties that are surround us as far as meeting what our people need?
Mr. James, I would not compare myself to Beaufort County. Beaufort County is a smaller county. They have a
Oh, yeah, I
smaller
realize
caseload.
that.
So if you want to do a comparison, you need to look at counties of comparable size. And if you look at counties of comparable sizes, those counties are having some of the same issues we have. And there are articles in the newspaper, I think there was one a couple of weeks ago that you got a copy of.
Oh, yes.
From another county that were having the same problems that we have. So it is not just Pitt County that having issues with getting their benefits timely. And the whole thing centered around is a new system. When the system is down, work cannot get done. The system was down 3 days in July, 24 hours that the staff could not key anything in. And some days the system is slow, and there's remarks that the state sent out letting us know that the system is slow. So all those things plays into how much a staff can get accomplished in a given day.
Right. Now, Mr. Manager, if I ask a question and I make a comment that's not correct, you correct me, please. All right. Now, as far as Beaufort County and Pitt County, we are prorated. We get so many employees paid by the state. The state pays a certain amount of this money, and the county pays a certain amount of the money. All right. Doesn't Pitt County have a certain number of employees that they have for each of the those who are participating in the programs such as food stamps, Medicaid, and so forth?
We have staff that's in each program, food
And
stamp,
for
Medicaid.
Beaufort County, like, if Beaufort County has just a few, then they have a few workers. If Pitt County has many, we have many workers. Am I
Correct.
correct? So therefore, there should not be too much difference when you compare
If
Pitt
you
County
look
and
at,
Beaufort County.
if you look at Pitt County comparison, you're looking at Pitt County carrying an average of over 16,000 cases. Now you look at an average worker here might have 700 or 800 cases per worker. Beaufort County might have less cases. So if you have less cases, therefore you have more time to work those cases. Now we're looking at when you averaging 800 cases a month, roughly 200 reviews out of that caseload, working 20 days a month, that's an average of 10 cases a month. And if you look at, you have to process those cases, you have to update the information, you have to key the information in. So in 20 days, if you're doing 10 applications a day, that's your whole 20 days. But you have other things that go along with getting those cases ready to put in the system.
Well, I have just a few more, and but the thing about it is this, I'm on the board, and what we are concerned with more than anything else is productivity. What are we getting from our workers, and why are we behind? And we want their morale to be up high. And if they don't understand what they're doing, I know it is very difficult for them to take and to fulfill those obligations. And it goes back, of course, to your supervisors. And how many supervisors do you have in the?
We have 2 in food and nutritional service. We have 2 in family and children Medicaid. We have 2 in adults Medicaid. We have 1 in work first, 1 in child daycare. You have 1 in the crisis program. You have 2 in child support and a supervisor over there. So we have quite a few supervisors.
Right. Well, I was going through, of course, this NC Pass, which
Yeah.
we have, and trying to better understand it so I could ask these questions today. And there you had 6 main ones, and each one of those has anywhere from 10 to 13. But going by this book that I'm
10
looking
to
at,
13 employees.
you're right. On each one of those, could you tell me, if I asked you what each supervisor, how are their workers, are they up to par?
We have some workers that are up to par. We have some workers that are under a written warning. We have some workers that we have dismissed. So we have a variety of staff within our department.
And I guess this has been my concern for a long time, for months, is that as we ask these questions, are they being trained? Has Raleigh sent you to
We
help
have
to train these
staff
people?
from Raleigh that helping us with our training of employees. If we identify something that an employee need in food and nutrition service, then we do have staff from Raleigh that here to help us.
And one reason I'm asking a lot of these questions is a lot of the board members are sitting in here listening. And we want the people to understand that we are concerned. If they don't get their food stamps, we want to know why. That's why we got this board.
Mr. James, we are concerned with our citizens as well as getting
Well, I know
food
you
stamps.
are.
And that's
I know
why
you
we
are.
have put in places to work on those things. The state put aside they have 90 employees that they have out in the different counties helping. The state realized that when they started NC Fast, that this was a new program, a new process, and it would take time for people to learn it. Now, when we normally have programs, the state do not invest any of their staff, any of their time, any of their money in these programs. NC Fast, the state did invest their money and their time hiring temporary staff to come out to the different agencies to help because they realized what we were getting into.
And like I was talking to someone, and they were saying, all departments are having to change. And all departments have elderly people like me, maybe not as old as I am, but they're not good on computers. We're not up to par, so to speak, and it's going to take more help for them to be trained. But we got to let these employees know, look, you're going to do this or you're going to have to be moved. I mean, it's hard to say, but it's the truth. They've got to be able to take and to do the job.
Mr. James, we have moved staff around, we have
Right.
dismissed staff, so we have done the things that we needed to do to make staff aware that things are changing, that in order to maintain your job at the Pitt County Department of Social Services, you got to be able to do the work.
Well, I have some more, but I'm going to wait until we have our board meeting, and then I'll put more to you.
Okay.
But there's one more question I do want to ask for the public. Because before I came in this morning, they wanted to know, and I couldn't answer. All of them that have food stamp cards, do they have their pictures on those cards?
No, the food stamp cards do not have pictures.
Why?
The state of North Carolina decides how they want to issue their EBT cards. And the EBT cards requirements are not one that you have your pictures on it. So,
All right, now, I know this to be a fact. All right, they go through there and they get the food stamps, and this, all of us get questions about this, and I know that. And they get out and they sell that food for half price, and then they take that money and they go buy whatever they want to buy. How can we prevent that? And
if you know someone that is doing that, we have a program integrity staff that will check into it. So in the community, if you know someone that's not using their food stamp card the way it's supposed to be used, then you can contact Pitt County Department of Social Services. As for our program integrity workers, they will take the information. You do not have to give your name, and we will investigate it and check it out.
And so help me, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to try to let this be the last one and keep my big mouth shut. But, all right, let's say this. Out there, we had a lot of people in line across the river. As you know, sometimes over 100 people in line about 8 o'clock. We gave them cards last year, numbers, so that if we could not see them that day, when they came back the next day, they would be first in line. Do you recall that?
Yes.
All right. I was told that that has been stopped. Is that true?
We have stopped that because under the crisis intervention program, we ran out of money, so there was no longer a need to reschedule people. So as people come in now, they are being able to be seen. So the crisis money ran out. People were coming in to get help with their utility bills. So that's why it was necessary for us to do that. We no longer have money in our crisis program. So if you go over there now, you would not see long lines. You will be able to park in the parking lot. Now beginning October, when we start the crisis program back up, it might be some of the same issues, but right now there's no problem with the clients coming in being seen.
Well, I guess my concern and all of our concern is if we have citizens that are going there and they are in line, that if they have stayed there all day long, because many of these people, well, they're not, well, they're kind of like me, I reckon. They're hard-headed, and we get mad if we go there and sit, and then you don't see us, and I come the next day and I got to sit again. So we need some system.
We have a system in place, Mr. James. We let people know that if we have so many people that we can see in a given day, and if they choose to, they can come back the next day to be the first in line. So we try to keep people from staying all day. We have 4 people that are doing the crisis intervention program. And the crisis intervention program is a program that helps with utilities. And we try to set it around the dates of your cutoff. So if you have a cutoff, then we try to work with you. But when you have X amount of staff, and you're seeing average of 15 people per person, which is 60 or 70 people first thing in the morning, that does not allow you any time after that to see additional people. Plus, once you take that application, you still have to verify the information. You have to call Greenville Utilities or whatever the utility company that they're using to let them know that the bill would be paid, and then you have to do the invoice for that bill to get paid. So it's not just seeing the clients. That's just the first phase of it. Then you have other things that you have to do to get that client bill paid.
And you have it safe now for the employees, is that correct?
Well, we got it safe, and we got a deputy over there.
Okay. That's it. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Ward?
Just a few questions. I kind of think some of them may have been answered. I'm not real sure, but already. But when was the earliest time that we could hear in Pitt County? First, I want to tell you, Mr. Perry, I think everybody on this board and probably people sitting out in the audience have been a part of advancing in technology in the places we worked and changing systems, even phone systems, whatever. And we know, anybody who's in administration, that there has to be some training, and some work to get our employees up to snuff, including the administration. So we understand about the situation, and particularly when you're working with government agencies, it's not always the easiest thing to do. But one of my concerns is, could we have started earlier? For instance, I think if we're beginning training today on people who are going to have to answer to all of the areas of the agencies, I think that's like playing catch up. It's like we're running backwards very fast. If I was a food stamp person, whatever that title is, then if I knew that I was going to have to pick up Medicaid, if I was receiving questions on NC Fast, and I had to answer all of these, I would have wanted to have been my training to have started a long time ago. And would that have been possible? And that's just my question.
The state set up the training for staff to go to, and this training, I think, is 2.5 days. What we're trying to do is get a jump on what will be happening on the work support strategies. We know that once Family and Children Medicaid come under NC Fast, then we know that there will be the concept of the universal worker. And what that means, that when the client come in to apply for food and nutrition service or Medicaid, they will not go to different workers.
Yes, sir, I understand
So what
that.
we're trying to do to get our staff working on being cross-trained so they can help each other. So when NC Fast come live for Family and Children Medicaid, we will already be combined together as opposed to being separate.
Right,
So
and my only question is, could we have started training these people earlier?
We could have probably trained earlier, but
Okay, and
but again, the state is the one that come up with the training, and so we're waiting on the state to come up with the training so we can move through that process.
and they did not come up with it until starting today?
The state is doing training now with our Family and Children Medicaid.
Okay,
So
but
we're
have they
s-
done it previously?
No, and what happened, the state decides when our staff would go for training.
And the only thing I was thinking was, I just feel like I like to start ahead, I like to plan ahead. The other thing I wanted to ask was, what was the first date that we could have started taking applications? Was it that December 17th?
December the 17th, what the state looked at, we have 100 counties, and the state rolled out different counties at different time periods. So we were scheduled to go live on December the 17th for application, research, and changes. We did applications earlier in NC Fast, and they kept food and nutrition service up, but in December the 17th, the old system switched off for Pitt County.
Right, but
And-
we did take applications earlier?
Just applications.
Okay, but we could and we did.
We could and we did.
Okay.
And then December the 17th, we moved into applications, recertifications, and changes. So up until that point in time, we were not doing recertifications, we were not doing changes in NC Fast.
Okay.
So on December the 17th, that's when we moved, and the whole focus of food and nutrition service moved to NC Fast.
Okay, one more question and then a statement. So we have not trained any of our workers in any areas that they're not already trained in until today?
Until the day we
Okay.
started.
The other concern is when I heard having served in an administrative position for many years, I know you have to bring people along, and particularly I do all right with a computer, Mr. James.
You're younger than I am.
Well, no, not a whole lot.
A lot.
Anyway, I feel like there's been some unrest, and I think we've heard not just from people receiving food stamps, but some of our employers. And that has concerned a lot of us. And I heard the word they couldn't get it done, so they were either transferred or dismissed. I heard both of those words in your statement. And that just kind of gets me a little bit concerned, because I think some of us on here have heard from some of the employers who felt like they were put into a position, the ones that were, like you said, were fastest keyers, I think was what you said.
Yes.
They were put in a position where they were having to just really get things done in a day, and you set a number that they were supposed to reach that day, and then if they didn't reach it a day or two in a row, they were called in and they were spoken to. And I don't, that just concerns me. If you've got a good worker who is you put there because they are a fast keyer, I feel bad that they have to be admonished in any way, because I figure they're
Well,
working themselves.
Number
to
one,
death.
the fast keyers were not called in.
Okay.
The ones that were called in was the ones that were not producing what we thought, 4 applications a day, 5 reviews a day. We looked at those and say that you have to do more than that. So the ones we called in was the ones that was not doing what we figured was necessary in order for us to get the work done.
Okay,
You
but
know,
they
we-
weren't meeting the standard that we had set for them.
No, they were not.
Okay.
That's why we started doing it on a day-by-day basis, so that we could monitor what each one was doing. And if they were not doing it, then we could meet with them, talk with them, see whether or not there were any things that needed to be done, such as training or whatever the issues were, so we could help them.
Okay. Do you have any idea how many of those people got extra training and are
We had
now
3.
doing it, or how many
We
had
had-
to be dismissed? Or?
We have 3 that got extra training, and that we're still working on 2 of those to get them where they need to be.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't want you to feel like this is an attack, but we've heard and are, we just felt like it might
Yeah.
be a good opportunity for you all to
Okay.
let us know what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Perry, Commissioner Ward asked when we could have gotten earlier training. You said we could have gotten it earlier. How much earlier?
When I say could have got, all of us are scheduled by the state when the training will be done. So when we look at training, the training could not have been any earlier because the state sets the date for the training. What we did, knowing that we were moving to the universal worker, we went on and made those changes with our staff to prepare for that. Now, Family and Children Medicaid will be coming in NC Fast sometime this month. So we went on and made those transitions so our staff would be already working in either intake or reviews, knowing that once the system in NC Fast got up and working, that if you took an application, you would not only be taking a Family and Children Medicaid application, you will also be taking a food and nutrition service application. So we went on and moved our staff into intake reviews so that they could begin the process of learning now. So when the system and when Family and Children Medicaid came on board, we will already be transitioning into that.
And you mentioned earlier that it's not just Pitt County when you talk about counties of comparable sizes, but there are counties of comparable sizes that aren't having these problems. So saying that we're not the only one is really an excuse. I want to know, are we learning from the counties of
We are.
comparable size that are doing it
We are
successfully?
learning from the other counties of comparable size. We're looking at what we can do different to get our staff, and that's why we are monitoring what they're doing.
'Cause it seems
Because
like-
we know that sometimes people resist change, and our thing is to help our staff transition from the old system into the new system and get them the help that they need.
It seems like we're doing these things at the last minute, and this is no doubt the biggest program that we have going on in DSS. How closely are you monitoring it?
I am monitoring on a daily basis. I have
My concern there is that a county commissioner had better information on overtime than you, the department head, did when you came into the meeting today. And overtime is a very sensitive thing in budgets, and it's something that should be monitored daily. So I wonder why you didn't have, I mean, you answered I don't know to at least 3 of his questions that were not questions that were really out of bounds. So I would just want to know, have you at some point delegated this to somebody, or are you keeping your finger on it?
I have delegated that to my supervisors. When we do our timesheets, I tell my staff that we're allowed to work comp time up to 60 hours. Anything over 60 hours have to be approved by the county manager. So staff monitor, supervisors monitor that, and if they go over the get close to the 60 hours, then they let me know so I can contact the county manager to get approval. But as far as monitoring day-to-day how many of my staff working comp time, I do not monitor that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Colson?
I think that starting a little bit late is kind of an under-exaggeration. 8.5 months. I spent all my life in the private sector, and something like this it just boggles my mind that you've waited this long. When you said that the set states the date for the training, specifically, what is the focus of the training that is conducted by the state?
The state come in and they train it on NC Fast. They train on how to get the information into the system, the different processes that we need. And this training lasts, is it 2.5 days? 2.5 days that staff go to training for 2.5 days. And the state work with them to get the processes so they understand how to do it.
So specifically, the focus has to do with just the NC Fast.
Right.
But you knew way in advance, probably before December the 17th, that you were going to have your people learn, I'm going to say, sister jobs.
No.
And that's something, you did not know that? You did not know that
December
person's...
the 17th was when we went live with NC Fast. Now, that was just for food and nutritional service. August of this year is when we are moving into work support strategies, moving into family and children Medicaid. So we put our focus initially on doing NC Fast for food and nutritional service, getting our food and nutritional service staff up to par on what they needed to do.
Are they up to par?
They are up to par, and we're working on some of the ones that still need some training.
And you're contending that you had no idea that these people were going to end up having to learn things that if it had to do with food stamps and they were doing another job, that there was...
Yeah, we knew that.
Well, that's my point.
At the same time...
That's my point, Mr. Perry. You could have started the training way, way long ago, regardless of when the state started the NC Fast training that told you how to enter stuff in the computer, because you knew that the people were going to have to learn jobs that other people were doing. They were going to end up being responsible for the whole gambit, as you explained right when you got up. And here we are 8.5 months later. You know what would happen in the private sector? Do you know what would happen to somebody in charge in the private sector that waited this long on a program this big? What is the entire budget for social services?
It's we got over $31 million.
No, not the state. I mean, not just us. What is it for your entire budget?
I think $330-some million.
$330-some million. And you got 16,000 cases.
They're just looking at food and nutrition service. Then you got family and children Medicaid, over 23,000 cases. Then you have adult Medicaid. Then you have child support. So you got a combination of all these different cases in our system. And our staff, they just deal with one program. They do not deal with different programs.
Well, I'm absolutely shocked. I'm glad that we had this gathering this morning to discuss this because, quite frankly, I didn't know this, but I'm shocked. and I'm very disappointed.
Well, I would say this. When we moved to NC Fast, the state was responsible for doing the training.
Training of the NC Fast
Fast.
portion,
NC Fast
but not
portion.
all the training. You are
It-
not telling the entire story when you sum it up and say the state was responsible.
The
Because the
state
state
has-
was not going to train your people that were doing food stamps how they had to be doing another job like
The state has
Medicare.
not done the training yet on the Family and Children Medicaid. They have not done that training. We have elected to go ahead and move our staff into Family and Children Medicaid, NC Fast, knowing that in the future that they will be universal workers, that they will be responsible for all the programs. So we went ahead and made that transition, knowing that our staff would get training and Family and Children Medicaid. So we went ahead and made that transition to put our staff together, so that when that happened, our staff would already be co-located together, ready to move in that direction.
8.5 months later, and you're just now starting.
Wait,
I have
wait, just a minute. Do I have to? Are you through,
I'm
Mr.
finished.
Coulson? Okay, Mr. McGaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Perry, it seems to me that the NC Fast system is a new system across the state, and what are some of the major problems that this system has caused?
The system sometimes is slow, and you have a hard time getting the information in. Sometimes the system is not up, which means that you cannot key anything in. We get defects that tells us that if you need to put the wages in, that you have to do it a different way. So every now and then we get notices about what is wrong with the system. So it has not been a perfect system, but once it get up and all these things happen, it would be a better system for the citizens to get the services.
Now, throughout your colleagues throughout the state of North Carolina, I'm sure that maybe you all communicate in terms of what seem to be some of the major issues across the
The
state.
major issues is that the system is sometimes
Slow.
What we mean by slow, getting the information keyed into the system. You know, I got an email from one county that they worked all day and they were only able to get 3 cases keyed into NC Fast, which is that's not a good day, knowing that you got all these workers and you can only get 3 cases keyed in. So, and then sometimes the system locks up. You have to go back in the system, go out, and then come back in. So we have all those issues with the system.
Right. Now, I think one of the concerns is that our recipients on food stamps, that they are receiving that. Do we have a problem in that area that people are not receiving food stamps that need to receive them? If so, how are we dealing with that?
We're dealing with them by using the food banks and other organizations in the community. And we work with our clients to make them aware that if we cannot process your case, then we have these other avenues out there to help you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Okay, Commissioner Owens?
Mr. Perry, we've talked about technology and we've talked about training and all to solve a problem, but isn't the problem that your workload has increased tremendously over the last 2 years, sir?
Our workload has increased as a result of the recession. So we have seen more clients coming in, more clients receiving assistance.
So you've had more people to come in to have to deal with, and the changes have been made in the eligibility, is that correct?
Yes.
So, say 2 years ago, what percentage would you say were your numbers then, or what numbers were you
We
dealing
were
with?
at 13,000 at one point in time.
And
Now,
excuse me, I'm sorry, I won't let
and
you
now we're at
finish.
16,000 households.
So you've had a large increase in the numbers you had to work with, so technology couldn't solve that.
Technology couldn't solve
Thank
all
you,
the
sir.
problems. But, you know, we got like you say, technology is not part of it, but we have staff that's learning as well.
Okay, thank you. Mr. James, did you have
Yes,
another
I
comment?
do. I want to say this on behalf of this board. I'm on the board of course, Social Services. I want to thank you all. Remember this, approximately 5 months ago, I came to you all, Mr. Manager, and I said we need additional help. You gave us approval of hiring 4 additional employees. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
It was actually
part-time.
eight part-time.
Well, it was 4 that, and then we increased it to 8 part-time. Am I not correct?
It was actually a total of 8, but it was only, half of it was gonna be paid by the state, and the county. was
Oh,
gonna
yes,
have to show that.
right, and it's always, the employees are that way too, aren't they, Dwayne?
So
Okay,
we had eight positions, probably about in, I don't know, January, February
Right.
timeframe.
So-
Go ahead.
we knew this a long time. That's what gets me so upset is that, and what Commissioner Colson was talking, we knew this months ago, and we tried to prepare. We really did. And I want to thank this board because you all did not hesitate. And that's not the other half. A month or 2 months ago, I went and talked to the manager, and I said, we need additional help. He said, Mr. James, you can have it, or your board can have it. Remember that? And he said, because we are willing to take and to do whatever it takes so that the social service can give our citizens food stamps and the Medicaid that they need. Now, I am going to shut up. But I want you to know I appreciate it very much, this board supporting us.
Everybody really believes his last statement. Raise your hand. Okay, fine. Mr. Manager, did you have some comment?
Yeah, if I can, just very quickly. Wanted to say that the NC Fast implementation, Mr. Perry is correct in some respects that it is a very difficult implementation across the state. And a lot of counties, whether similar sized counties, larger counties, or smaller counties, are struggling with some of the same factors we are. I mean, obviously, I think we can't put all of the blame on the state. I think there's some that we need to share internally as well. Did want to talk about 4 different things. One about the technology. One, our own MIS Management Department has worked closely with DSS. Everything that we need in terms of computers, the streaming and so forth, going to Raleigh has been up to par. We've been number 1 or number 2 in terms of our connectivity. The problems that Mr. Perry alludes to are on the state's end in terms of the state being able to receive the data that's inputted into the computer. But we have, again, we've been number 1 or number 2 in terms of connectivity as I've seen reported to us. The second thing is really a question for Mr. Perry in terms of the training modules by the state. As the other modules come forward, will we be behind the 8 ball as well in terms of training by the state as other modules of NC Fast are put out there?
No, we would not be behind the 8 ball because what the state would do as we transition into the different parts, then our staff would get training. Everybody will not go live at the same time. So the state will do the training as the counties move into NC Fast.
So I guess the delayed training was just on the front end of this project. It won't be on the back end by the state?
When you say delayed training,
Were you saying the state is just training the employees now?
the state is now moving towards training for family and children Medicaid. Because that was, when we talk about phase 2 and 6, there were different phases to NC Fast. Phase 1 was food and nutritional service. Phase 2 and 6 is family and children Medicaid, adult Medicaid, special assistance. So the state had different phases of training, and then they do the training with the staff for those different programs.
Is there anything Pitt County could do to request the state to train us earlier here on from this point forward?
I don't think so, because the state is looking at readiness as to, they might be out in the central part, so they try to do all the training at one time in different areas, which helps them. So they try to bunch it up in the different areas when they do the training.
Okay. Third point I want to say was on terms of the part-time staff that Commissioner James alluded to. In last year's budget, mid-year through the year, request was made of DSS to allow them to hire 8 additional part-time staff through the end of the fiscal year. Did have a concern because we were going to be dipping into the lap salaries, but we said we saw the need for it, brought it for the board, you folks approved it, was concerned about where we would land in terms of fund balance overall for the organization, but again, saw the need and the priority for it. During the spring budget workshops, when I met with Mr. Perry one-on-one, Mr. Holder and myself, we did ask the same question: what do you need to continue the implementation of NC Fast? And we were told we really need the 8 part-time workers continued July 1 going forward. So that recommendation was brought before you as a board. You approved it. And my understanding is right now, the part-time workers that you hired were actually retired DSS employees who knew the system, who were the most up-to-date in terms of the rules and regulations of how you do it. They have now, for the most part, have ran the number of hours they can work up to about 1,000 until they go over that. They're then kicked out of the North Carolina retirement system. So you've had to hold back on them. So right now you've got the positions and you've got the money, but you're not necessarily filling the positions.
We have advertised for temps that will come in, and we'll be looking at that because, like you said, under the retirement system, they can only work 1,000 hours in a year.
Okay.
So otherwise, they would have, like you say, have to go back into the retirement system. And we did not ask for additional staff in this budget because we figured that with NC Fast, Family and Children Medicaid, all of those coming into the computer system, that we would not need additional staff. So we wanted to look at the temporary staff and then see how that would work before we ask for permanent staff.
My last comment is, you kind of alluded to it, that once NC Fast is fully up and implemented in Pitt County and probably across all 100 counties in North Carolina, the staffing levels within DSS should decrease because we'll have a system that is more cross-functionally efficient. You'll have workers that are not siloed in whether Medicaid or food and nutritional services, but they'll actually be able to work all those areas.
All the areas.
And what we're hoping is that through the number of positions that we have eliminated over the last 3 or 4 years during the recession, that actually we won't have to do any rifts within the department because your staffing levels may already be prematurely low, which may be part of the problem that you are facing right now, that we did do away with those positions and it's kind of hurting you at this point, but it will be advantageous to us once the system is fully up and operational because you will already be at a lower staffing level. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. When did you say you would be current? Was it 9/3 or 9/30?
9/30.
9/30. Okay, so what we would request is at our first meeting in October that you come back and give us an update.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry.
Next item on our report is the performance scorecard, and Mr. Dwayne Holder is going to present that.
Good morning. This next item on your agenda is actually something that I think has typically been included, probably in some information dissemination that you've received. It is a part of our overall county's performance measurement system. And for benefits of the public, we do publish a quarterly document that's entitled Performance Measurement that is given and presented to the Board of Commissioners. And what that does is, in the spirit of government transparency and accountability, actually helps us to measure our performance as an overall organization. And each county department is involved in this performance measurement system, where a series of objectives are established and performance indicators are tracked to evaluate how well we are progressing toward achievement of those objectives. What we have in your packet for today is what we have called a performance scorecard that you've seen over the last few years. This is actually a scorecard from last fiscal year. So we're sort of in catch-up mode with this. This is how we, it's an excerpt of the overall document from fiscal year 2011, 2012. I would anticipate the end of this calendar year, you're receiving the completed performance scorecard for fiscal year 12-13. What this document does is it, again, is an excerpt of this larger document that we feel is a little more user-friendly for the general public. It touches on those items that we have extracted from the overall performance measurement report that correspond with, one, your board priorities, and two, input that we've received from the public on what really matters to them of what county government is doing. I'll just highlight, if you'll look at page 3 of the document, we have public safety, public health, social services, and financial services highlighted. There are 12 performance objectives that were extracted from the overall document from those areas. We do have a system of what we call a stoplight system, and you'll see where the green means that the objective was met or exceeded. The yellow or caution light means that we did not meet the objective, but we were within 10% of meeting it. And the red stoplight means that we were not within 10% of meeting the target. Of the 12 objectives that have been extracted from the report, 7 were items that were met or exceeded. 2, we were on 2 of the items we were within 10% of meeting the objective, and there's 3 that we were outside of our 10% margin. In addition to the objectives that have been pulled out of the report, we also use this as an opportunity to inform the public on our financial performance at the end of the year. So we will continue to give end-of-year financial reports as a part of this overall document. On your August 19th meeting agenda, you will have what we have is our year-end review performance measurement report. So this will include all of the county's departments' performance against pre-set objectives for the past fiscal year. And again, after we typically would try to wait until the audit is over, which will be August, September timeframe. After that, a new performance scorecard will be generated and be presented and available. This document is also available to the public. We make it available in the county manager's office, and it is also posted to our website.
Any questions for Mr. Holder? If not, thank you very much. Do I have a motion that we approve our consent agenda?
Second.
Motion second. Let's vote, please. We have 2 items for discussion. The first one is going to be our vehicle replacement plan. Mr. Holder is going to present that. This is in conjunction with our budget preparation. We requested our manager to come back to us with a list of the vehicles that we were going to be purchasing with the $600,000 that we set aside in our budget for this objective.
As Chairman Garris mentioned, this is in response to your request for us to bring back a list of recommended vehicles. As you recall, you did approve a $615,000 3-year loan. Prior to us going out to get some quotes on that, we wanted to try to nail down what specific vehicles would be approved for replacement. After working in conjunction with Mr. John Demery, who oversees our fleet, and consulting with the manager and some of the affected departments, the listing in your packet is our final recommendation. It is inclusive of 25 vehicles. 17 of those vehicles are sheriff or detention center vehicles. Overwhelming majority are sheriff, and as you'll see in the detail, overwhelming majority are slated for patrol vehicles. There are 4 social services vehicles recommended for replacement, 2 public health vehicles, 1 in tax administration, and 1 in emergency management. And we would seek your approval of the recommended vehicle list.
Any questions of Mr. Holder? If not, I will
Yes,
entertain a motion.
I have a comment. I certainly support the purchasing of these vehicles, but I do not support the way we didn't set it aside. We are borrowing this money.
That's correct. This is a
Sure,
three-year loan. It's a rolling loan. It's a rolling replacement program where we are trying to put this back into place so that next year we can do the same thing.
Right, and I know they need the vehicles, but at the same time, we could have got this out of our budget without borrowing this money and having to pay it back. And this is not the first time I've said this, but I think we messed up. I don't believe in when you can pay something to borrow the money for it. That's all I got to say, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I support the person, but I don't support the way you're paying for them.
Well, the reason I voted to do it this way
Yeah.
was because I want to protect our fund balance and see it increase.
But we could have taken it, we gave.
Any further questions or
I
comments,
agree.
Mr. Holder? Yes,
sir.
Mr. Owens.
Procedure plans for the future.
Yes, sir.
Are you telling me that you're gonna want about $615,000 for repurchasing vehicles every year?
No, sir. Actually, under our current proposed plan, we're calling it a 3-year rolling plan. We would look at having capacity, not outside of what we're currently spending, but capacity of having 2 loans for vehicles at any given time. So the way that our system is set up now, it's proposed that we'll have a loan to start this year, a loan to start next year. The 3rd year, there would not be capacity available. And so it would skip a year, and then new capacity would be built the 4th year.
How many may I ask another?
Sure.
How many cars have you bought for the last fiscal year?
It's in this range, the 25 to 30.
All right,
Yeah,
but
it is.
What was the cost of them?
Well,
These are all on state contract.
I mean, the last ones we bought, the 25 or 30, what was the cost of those vehicles?
John Demery,
Just give me the figure, I don't want a breakdown.
It was around the 600,000.
That's my
because that's
point.
what we
the
set
previous
aside.
loan, yes,
Yeah.
the previous, this
Yeah,
is actually modeled after the previous loan.
So that's 1 year for 25 replacement for $600,000.
Yes, sir.
What you got here is another replacement of 25 vehicles for $600,000.
Yes, sir.
So now I'm getting back to my original question. It's going to take that or more every year hereafter to replenish vehicles, isn't it?
It would, yes, sir.
All right, my next
Yes, sir.
question is, going through as the commissioners requested and evaluating to check this for the cost and the use of the money, are we buying enough? My next point is that I do not want vehicles that's going to endanger our people that are using them.
Right.
let me answer that, Dwayne.
All right.
We are probably not buying enough, but we're doing better than we did in the last, say, 3 or 4 years back where we weren't buying any at all. We are still trying to play catch up. We should probably be buying twice the amount of this, but trying to live within our means, not raise taxes, and trying to come up with a funding mechanism, this rolling replacement plan. This is about the best we can do. I think the sheriff would probably like to have twice as many new vehicles, but I believe he has given me the indication that he's satisfied. I hope he would shake his head yes or no on that with this compared to no vehicles.
Yeah.
Now, when is the catch-up going to conclude? When are you going to be able to catch up so you maybe can broach the idea of showing what's really needed, is my point, Scott.
Well, I mean, John Demery, the number of vehicles that we had on the overall list at budget was how many? We're doing 25, how many was?
56 total.
56, so we're doing
Is what I recommended at the beginning of the budget.
half of what was recommended.
Now, Scott, are you and Dwayne telling me and John then that what this proposal here we do as nearly possible as we can to make sure that we have safety for our officers? Secondly, that is the best method, getting back to what Gene was talking about, it is the best method to protect the taxpayer too.
Yes, sir. I think it's a balance between those 2 points.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Do I have a motion that we accept this recommendation?
I so move.
Have a motion, second, let's vote. Very good, thank you. Next item for discussion is a report and recommendation from our Street Maintenance Committee. And Mr. Rhodes is going to present that, and we'd also like to welcome one of our members of that committee, Mr. Bryant Kittrell, who is also going to be a co-presenter.
I get to go first, James? Yes. All right.
Brian bought the money to do this with him.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, why do you think we put him on the committee?
I knew he was here for some reason.
All right, that's good. We'll think about that. First of all, good morning, Chairman Garris and the board. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Bryant Kittrell, Street Maintenance Committee Chairman. I'm going to go off script just a little bit because James wrote me a nice little script here, but I want to just say a few things I want to say that he can give you the nuts and bolts of what we discussed and what our recommendations are. But first of all, I want to commend you as a commission for addressing this problem. It's a problem statewide. It's been a problem in our county for the longest time, and I think y'all are just really wise to do this. Also, I want to thank the committee. It was a hard-working committee. They had good leadership from Mr. Colson, who was our voting liaison member, and gave good input from what the commissioners were looking for. And I also want to compliment the staff. I mean, your staff was absolutely outstanding. And one other thing I wanted to mention was also thank you for the sunset provision. I wish more committees that were assigned by boards, including the city council, would have a finite date, because it made us work harder and more efficiently. Oh, and the one thing I forgot to mention, I got to sit in Chairman Garris's chair one time, and that was a real privilege. I always wanted to do that. So that
Upgraded the seat.
Yeah, that was an amazing thing. But before I turn it over to James, the one thing I do want to say, to me, the ultimate solution is DOT taking these streets over once they're built and approved, and their punch list or approved, because otherwise, this is going to continue to be a problem. I don't know how it's going to be solved. I know in the city of Greenville, we actually take over the streets once the work is done and the punch list has been approved by engineering, even if there's no houses sold and no people living on the streets. And that's the problem. We've had developers that, especially in the downturn in the market, when the houses did not sell, the street, I mean, the DOT wasn't going to take them over. The developers, a lot of them, some of them went bankrupt or they died or whatever. And so it was a real problem. And now DOT's answer, and we had Woody Jarvis, who was a very good member of our committee, the state doesn't really want to do that. And I know it's a real challenging area. I know the county doesn't want to get into street maintenance, but hopefully the state will address that, because they're sort of dodging it as much as they can. My last comment is, it is a good thing for tax base. You're turning undeveloped land into houses, and that generates revenue, and that's something the county wants to continue to have. So I think what we've come up with is a good plan, and I'll let James speak to that. So if I have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Bryant. Members of the board, again, just to give you a little background history on this particular topic, this does not deal with, we've dealt with those existing subdivision streets through another policy that you had before you a month or so ago. We're now looking at changing the subdivision ordinance to better prepare us for some of these streets that are coming in through new development, through the subdivision process. You may recall about a year ago, staff went out, did an assessment of about 35 miles of streets that are currently in that limbo between when the developer constructed the streets and before the Department of Transportation has taken them over for maintenance. And we've got problems out there, as we've acknowledged, and basically what we saw from our assessment, about 3 miles are in very poor condition, about a third, 12.5 miles in somewhat fair condition, repairable at this time, and the other still in, over half, still in relatively good condition. Our current subdivision ordinance, and it's been worded this way since you've had one for about 40 years now, back in '72, it is a requirement that the developer maintain these streets until the time DOT take them over. Again, these are publicly dedicated road rights-of-way. The issue, of course, depending on the lag time between when they're built, when they meet certain criteria required by the state, and when DOT will take them over, a lot of things can happen, and some of these roads have fallen into disrepair. We have had some other previous efforts. Our planning board, as you recall, did bring before you in March a another set of amendments that would require a financial guarantee. This was married with an amendment that was developed late last year that more specifically and explicitly spells out what the requirements are for the developers and also gives us some teeth in enforcement of those requirements to keep the roads maintained. The request by the planning board, it was a 25% financial guarantee. The board at that time decided to move forward in establishing the committee that Mr. Kittrell chaired. And again, I would just like to interject a great committee to work with. I think we've got a great recommendation coming back and to some extent has reaffirmed what the planning board had sent to you. Back in April, the planning board sent this recommendation. We went forward with establishing the committee. The committee met for a couple of months and got a lot of good discussion going. And the bottom line here is a three-point approach, three-prong approach in getting these streets maintained throughout the duration until accepted by DOT. Number one, again, without this financial guarantee, the committee members, including a developer or two that's on the board or on the committee, did agree with the financial guarantee, somewhat reduced at 15%. Also, paired with an annual inspection program and a reporting program that comes from the private engineer that's involved with the developer. And this runs hand in hand with the enforcement program that we already had in place with our more recent amendments. With this, the committee did unanimously decide to go with the three-point approach. I will let you know that there was some lively discussion about the percentage. Not surprisingly, that's kind of been one of the things that we've been discussing for quite a long time. The committee did, by a 5-4 vote, go with 15%. Some others wanted this board to decide that percentage. Others already went on record as saying they'd like to have it higher than 15%. Also, from the staff perspective, we'd like to add on to that. We agree with this three-point approach. We would like to see it run back through our normal review process, that being back through the planning board for a public hearing before bringing it back to you with the required subdivision amendment language. And secondarily, of course, Ms. Gallagher also served as staff support for this committee. One of the main issues was, as Brian has alluded to, this lag time that's put in place by some of the policies of DOT. And the group did unanimously agree that that also needs to be looked at, and this might want to be one of your legislative items for the upcoming year. And with that, Mr. Chairman, there's your recommendation. We'll be glad to answer any questions you have this morning.
Any questions of Mr. James?
I've got a
I'd like
comment.
to make a statement.
I certainly oppose it. First place, rural Pitt County is not the city of Greenville. And you're not going to have anybody in Pitt County outside. And I don't know about Aden, Winnable, Simpson, and Grimson, how they feel about it. But you're talking about a different situation, and I guarantee you on that vote that you had, is that there's not as much money. The city of Greenville can get all the money they want. I know I own property there. And they can get it to do whatever they want to with the streets. But we out there in the rural, we can't do that. Neither can Aden. And you're going to hinder the growth of the other areas. But as I said, Greenville don't have to worry about money. I get my taxes. I know what I have to pay. Almost as much as the county. So you keep that in mind. And certainly, I don't think, I've told you this before, I think you're going to hurt rural growth. I'm in favor, of course, just like that gentleman that came up here and said, we want to take and to pay it, and they will sign the petition to take and to tax them on their real estate to take and to pay for the roads, which I thought we had worked out.
And Mr. James, again, this is for new subdivision streets.
I know it is, but you got
the petition process is for those that are already in place where the developer is no longer available to meet those requirements for maintenance.
This is Pitt County, that's exactly right. And you don't want to get in road building for the taxpayers of Pitt County. I told you, Greenwood's got plenty of money. I know. They got Greenwood Utilities subsidizing them. How many millions? We don't have that, gentlemen.
And Mr. James, this policy or these amendments would preclude us from getting more involved with road maintenance. This would have the financial guarantee put in place by the developer, not by the county.
Oh, that's right. That's what's 15%. What do you think that is on a 1 mile or half a mile? How many people can afford that if they're going to do it? Just tell me that.
You're wanting the cost estimate.
Yeah.
Again, this is 15% of just the road construction, not the overall development of the subdivision.
Right.
We're talking typically about 500,000
That's
per
right.
mile, so 15% of that.
How many of these developers, now, some can. Some of them are blessed. Some of us are blessed. But there are a lot of people out there that don't have that kind of money that you would hinder them. I've said enough, but I've told you the truth.
Mr. Carlson?
Well, first off, I'd like to say that when you saw the 5-4 split, that was basically on the percentage. Other than that, the board was very much in lockstep. There's synergy everywhere else, I would say. The Woody Jarvis, who was the DOT representative, estimated that the worst case scenario would be likely a complete repavement when the DOT had to, or when they were being requested to take it over. He estimated that to be at least 20%. And so around that we debated, but then there was always the argument about where they're going to get the extra money. And to Mr. James, or Commissioner James, taking note of the fact that there's a lot of money there, one of the things is that oftentimes builders go out there, take a huge chunk of land, and they do run a lot of road surface. Out of this might come better thinking on the part of the developers. Maybe I don't want to build 2 miles of road. Maybe I want to build a subdivision and only use a quarter or a third or so on. The other thing too is the DOT, Woody Jarvis said that if the builders were to, the main thing that they have got to come up to is a density of population. And once that's met, it doesn't have to be an entire subdivision. It could be along a road. And so there are mechanisms to where they can do it piecemeal along the way. But the bottom line here is we're trying to protect people from having paid. They've already paid. When they paid for their lot, do you think the developer, out of his goodness of his heart, that he is just giving away the road? No, they've already paid for that road under the presumption that that road will eventually be taken over by the DOT. So, and what we're talking about are the publicly dedicated right-of-ways. And so there's a lot of roads out there right now, as we saw, that are in a state of disrepair, and there's nobody there to help them. But that's apples and oranges that we're talking about. This is from going forward. The other part of this, though, that troubles me, and we talked about it extensively, and it had to do with private roads. The private roads are where a developer can come in and he can dedicate develop a subdivision, and he can say that these roads are private. He can form a homeowners association. He can put minimal dues on it so that at the outset it doesn't sound like much. $25, $50, $100 a year, which is nowhere near enough 10 years, 12 years, 15 years down the road to where these people will be able to reach into a bank or a fund and be able to cover the cost of the roads. So going forward, we will continue to have this problem, I'm afraid, where the private roads are so dedicated. When Bill Clark was up here, you heard what he said. The answer was that going forward, he was going to then make all his subdivisions private roads. Do you remember that? Yeah. So he's going to set up a homeowners association. That is very convenient for the builder. It's disaster for anybody buying. So one of the things that we debated in there and was that if it comes up with a private road, somehow that there be full knowledge to the buyer, caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware, because if you're buying a road, a house, in a subdivision that has a private road, you may be stuck. And the average cost, we were asking Woody at the time, what does it cost per mile to do a road? And he said $530,000. What's it take to repave it? About 20%. In some of these subdivisions, if they let the roads get into such a state of disrepair, it could be way more than that. It's also based on footage. So you take somebody on a corner lot, and they got 100 feet going each way, they got 200 feet. If they have a private road, they in all likelihood will be responsible for the replacement of the road for all 200 feet. Some of the things we talked about, what if somebody lives in a cul-de-sac and they only have a little bit of road? Again, private. Well, they're going to be responsible for what's in front. Whereas what we did with the publicly dedicated right-of-ways, the discussion was based on a subdivision that it be broken down evenly per lot, regardless of road frontage. So there's a lot of things in here that I think are a big step forward. But I caution anybody that buys any property that has a private road, beware.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? What is your pleasure? Are you see the recommendation?
I so move that we forward it to the planning board for them to go through their normal process and then let them bring it back to us.
Very good. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, we'll have a second. Let's vote. Mr. Hammond? David, have you voted? Hit confirm. Very good, thank you. Let me publicly express our appreciation to this committee. Thank you very much, Brian, for your leadership. And the other members of that committee was Don Edmondson, Brian Kittrell, Mike Baldwin, NCDOT Representative Woody Jarvis, Tom Blevins, Jim Weiss, Wayne Meads, Tom Colson, our commissioner. From our planning board, we had Lyman Hardy, and then from our staff, we had James Rhodes, Janice Gallagher, and Phil Dickerson. And thank you very much for a job well done. Each of you took this very seriously, and we appreciate your input. I think we have a good plan. Is it perfect? No, but it's much better than what we had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we have now a request for a break. So if it is okay with the board, we will take a 5-minute break. Thank you, and welcome back to our meeting after our break. The next item is we will go into our items for decision, and the first item is a janitorial contract with ECBC, and Mr. Dickerson will present that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
in light of the fact that we've already gone over this previously and talked about it, I move that we approve this.
I second it.
I have a second. Any questions of Mr. Dickerson? Let's vote. Good presentation there, Phil. Good job.
You'd have said the same thing again, wouldn't you, Phil?
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on our items for decision is an appeal of a condemnation order by Mrs. Brenda Harris, and I believe our attorney had some comments to lead us into this discussion.
Yes, and James Rhodes also has a PowerPoint for you to follow along. I just wanted to introduce the matter to let the board know that pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A 370, that's the statute that says when there is an order of your building inspector and the owner of that home whose property has been condemned is not satisfied, then they appeal directly to this board. That's why the matter is before you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. You're familiar with that process. That means all witnesses must be sworn. You'll hear evidence on both sides. It is appropriate to limit the time frames and to caution folks not to be repetitive in their comments to the board. Once you have heard all of the evidence before you, then this board will make a decision including findings of fact, and you may do three things. You may either affirm the order of the building inspector, you may reverse the order of the building inspector, or you may modify the building inspector's order. In this particular case, if the board so agrees, after my remarks, the witnesses will be sworn. Keith Edwards, the building inspector, will come forward, make a presentation, and James Rhodes will be there as well. And then the appellant in this case, who is Ms. Brenda Harris, will come forward, make her remarks, and then the board will deliberate here and make your decision among those choices.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes?
Mr. Edwards will actually take you through the staff report, and also we need the swearing in of the witnesses first.
Okay, so all witnesses that would like to speak in this process, please come forward and be sworn in.
Place your left hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
James, the young lady that started forward, does she need to be sworn in?
That will be your decision. We can go ahead and swear in if you'd like to.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, after consultation with the Department of Insurance and the School of Government and our research on the issue, we've explored as to who it's appropriate to speak at a hearing. In this particular case, the parties, which include the county and the property owner, are the appropriate parties to speak as parties. Now, if any other persons are called as witnesses to speak, this board may call a witness to speak, Ms. Harris may call a witness to speak, or Mr. Edwards may call, then others would have the opportunity to speak. But I believe the folks in the back row are Mr. and Mrs. Lynch, who are the occupants of the property that we're talking about. And if they should be called, nothing would preclude them from being sworn in at the time they're called.
okay, thank you. Proceed, Mr.
Good morning.
Edwards.
I'll just go through the chronology of events here for the property. August 14th, we received a complaint. August 15th of this 2012, it was generated through our permitting staff, or by our permitting staff. First site visit, we were unable to make contact, and following week, August 20th through 24th, we did several site visits. We were able to make contact with the tenants, explain the process to them. What we have is a double-wide mobile homes, illegal addition on the back. We got access to that block, got the electrical disconnected for safety issues. That was done by a licensed electrician. May 9th of this year, we had noticed no progress toward gaining compliance with the structure. The following day, May 10th, we sent out a notice of hearing, a citation and stop work order to the owner via certified and first-class mail. Week of May 13th, we received a letter from Ms. Brenda Harris. May 20th, we did a site visit the day before our hearing. Everything was still in compliance as far as it blocking access and no electricity. We had a hearing May 21st. During that time, Ms. Harris requested that the hearing be terminated due to lack of representation on her behalf. The May 31st, myself, James Rhodes, Janice Gallagher, spoke with the Department of Insurance staff to verify that all of our procedures were proper and correct. He verified that they were. At the conclusion of that meeting, myself and Ms. Gallagher made a phone call to Ms. Harris to remind her of the date of the hearing. June 3rd of this year, we had the hearing, ordered that the illegal addition be demolished, associated debris removed and the property cleaned. June 6th, the order was sent out with that information in it, having 60 days to gain compliance. Ms. Harris made a request to appeal June 11th, and notice of August 5th hearing date from clerk dated June 21st for this particular hearing. Here you'll see an overhead view of the double wide. Here's the existing structure. The illegal addition is here outlined in red. Have various pictures of the interior of the addition. We have water had entered the structure. We have fungi present, water damage to the structural materials. And following, you have various views of the interior. They've removed the interior wall covering and insulation to facilitate the drying and cleaning of the building components. And following, they're just panning around with different views. This is the outside, the back left corner of the structure, an exterior view. County recommends that the order of the building inspector be affirmed. That's my presentation.
We have any questions of Mr. Edwards? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Harris, you may come forward. And I know we stated in our agenda package that there would be 10 minutes, and she has requested that she have around 18, and we have allowed that.
May I just ask one question? He don't need to come back up there. All right, the wine in that particular new part of the building, was it inspected, and did she have approval to start to do that? In other words, the wine that was put there in that part was not.
Mr. Evans, you need to come back to the microphone.
That's all right. I'm too. You answer my
I
question.
believe that this presentation will answer your question, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
Proceed.
I'm Brenda Harris, and ProSearch Investment actually owns this. The Lynches are tenants in controversy because they've not paid in almost 2 years. The addition was not built by Brenda Harris. It was built by William Civils, and I bought it in the process. The problem of the matter is you've heard things that sound like the truth, but let's tell you what the real truth is. Mr. Rhodes could verify that August 14th complaint was from Brenda Harris. It was written. I have a copy. That copy is going to the Department of Insurance, the licensing board, with a formal complaint against Mr. Edwards today. I wanted the video to be a presentation, and I wanted each one of you to be witnesses, because we need to tell the truth. Mr. Edwards is an officer of the court. He's pledged to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So let's get on record. The August 14th complaint was from Brenda Harris because I saw shingle damage every time I went to the house to try to communicate with Shane and Stephanie Lynch. I was chased off the property. Had I thought I had enough time for witnesses, Don Lewis, that took the county to the cleaners, so to speak, 5 or 6 years ago, or maybe 8, he was a witness because he went with me, and I was chased off the property. All right, let's talk about May 10th. If I've not been on the property, he knows I haven't been on the property. Why would you issue a stop work order when you know that I won't do any work? And why would you condemn a part of the property? Now, I might need some help. Somebody help me. Let's see. James, I think I might have it. All right, here we go, guys. This is the property that it's in question. All right? This is the condemned part, but this is what you really want to put your eyes on. That's an addition. Brenda Harris didn't build it. Brenda Harris didn't buy a permit, but the William Civils was obligated to. This inspector knew that Brenda Harris didn't build it. It was included in that August 14th letter. And instead of communicating with the, quote, owner, Mr. Edwards talked to tenants that were enjoying the fact that they were living free, getting over. I had witnesses, even a contractor that was willing to come, but there was no time that was told that would be given me.
Now, what I want to tell you is each one of you have a package. Would you look to the last page? We're going to make it pretty short and sweet. You'll see an order there. It says, Brenda Harris will demolish the illegal addition, remove associated debris, and clean the property at 1383 Frankie Coburn Road. This is an order. Okay, let me tell you what the statutes say. It's next. Look at it. Follow it with me. General Statute 153A-369. If upon a hearing held by General Statute 153A-3868, the inspector finds the building is in a condition that constitutes fire or safety hazard or renders it dangerous to life, health, and other property. And if you can tell me, back to this addition, that you can condemn a part of a building when the statutes say a building, the statutes talk about ownership. Mr. Edwards didn't communicate with ownership, and the witnesses to that are our county attorney, are James Rhodes, is our assistant county attorney, and they will be called at the Department of Insurance because we've got to look what the statutes say. If it's dangerous to life, y'all, let's use our good sense. How would you think that something on an immediate wall over is not dangerous to health? Mr. Edwards is not a mold inspector. I couldn't help the hurricane damage. I have pictures of everything I do before and after. Well, let's keep going on that statute. He shall issue a written order directed to the owner, requiring the owner to remedy the defective condition by repairing, closing, vacating, and demolishing the building. The reason Mr. Edwards is going before the Building Code Licensing Division in a formal complaint is because Brenda Harris had no process in this. Mr. Edwards decided that he would tell a tenant in violation of contracts how to go into the power box and cut the power. But you know why I sent that August 14th letter? Because I knew that when I recorded it as evidence that the county would be responsible if they bellyached. I'm not asking you to reverse the condemnation order. I'm asking you to modify it. I'm asking you to condemn the whole building because, frankly, I can't get access to it. And frankly, to be honest with you, in our courts it takes a long time. We're going to file eviction orders. And the reason that we have to call our county attorney and Mr. Edwards as a witness is because in order to establish a landlord-tenant violation, it's important to do it more than just money. If it's dangerous to life and health, then we have to consider the fact that on the other side of a marriage wall, that's not even a marriage wall, if we're thinking correctly, guys, the water, I put a new rubber roof on it after a hurricane in August of 2011. I didn't tear out the structure. Shane Leach did. But he decided then that he didn't want to fix it. So he went to legal aid, which is free legal. They have not filed a grievance with me. They threatened me with one, and I have come back to the process and I said, you show me the law. But I've got something I want you to see. This isn't the first condemnation that our dear Mr. Building Inspector did. May I have permission to hand this to you? This is one. All right. This is one of a single wide. It was done in October of 2011. A little tenant called Sweet Milk, God help, was in it. And I have this much pictures, but you see the ones that were before. I can tell you that when a building inspector targets somebody and he's an officer of the court, it's fraud upon the court. It's called General Statute 18 U.S. Code. It voids any kind of order on a federal basis, which is federal is over state. But what you have is in October 2011, I got this cute little condemned sign. I got a young boy that's taking it now. He's a little redneck contractor. I like him. And he said, what do I need to do? I said, oh, Keith said, just call him. I don't have to buy a permit. I didn't get an order. I got a condemned sign. What makes the difference, guys? What floats your boat? Which statutes show up today and which statutes show up tomorrow? This should tell you we got a problem here. And when he goes before the licensing division, and he's been there already, Mario Reynolds. I rode shotgun behind Mario, and Reggie Satterfield almost lost his license. Keith Edwards was cited, I believe, according to the people that I talked with. And they say, we've done everything according to law. How about if they hear the other side of the story, guys? Here's what I want you to do, okay? I sent in that inspection because I know the Lynch family by now. I know what to expect. I can fight this out in a court of law and I'll end up winning. Might take a few months. But let me tell you what we need. We need laws that work for everybody. We need a system that's consistent. And if you're going to condemn a back part of a building and it says it's with the owner, why don't we condemn the building? If it's unsafe for buildings around it, do you get the point? The Lynches have 3 children. I want you to call the Department of Social Services this day. And you say, one of our inspectors has cited part of this building as unsafe. We need to condemn it. So we certainly need to vacate the children. Tell the Lynches they've saved money for 2 years to go find them a place to live. And then if they want to fight me in court, let them fight me. But it is not the place of the Board of Commissioners, nor is it the place of an inspector. Let's go back to that order. Repairing, closing, vacating, and demolishing. And let's go back to the 60 days. Statutes say a minimum of 60 days. Guess what the law says? Greenville says 120 days. Winterville says 180 days. Everybody says when you buy a permit, that stops. But my order says demolish. You tear it down, you did wrong. How do you get access when you got a tenant that chases you off? I went by one day and there was I saw Shane Lynch on the front porch and he had a video camera. I was just passing the way. My daddy's house was down the road. I was visiting the tenant. I called the legal aid up and I said, have you got somebody that don't quite understand? That is threatening. I don't like it. And it stopped. But I don't get access to the property. Landlord-tenant laws, guys, govern me. And Mr. Owens, you could tell people that the laws are subject to availability, aren't they? So rewrite this, and you say, I condemn the whole structure. Because if it's imminent danger, certainly it's danger for anybody to live in it. And then I'll buy a permit. You remove the part that says you will demolish because the statutes say that I have options. The statutes, and you have your inspector become accountable for why he issued a stop work order when he knew I didn't step foot in the property from the time he inspected it until now. You tell him that a lie is a lie when he knows the value of the truth. And then you tell him that I'll buy the permits. I didn't build the structure. I think that the wall that connects has to be torn completely apart, restudded, and put back together again, and all the insulation replaced. I believe that's, and you certainly can't do that in occupancy. So how can you tell me to tear the thing down with a tenant in it? Your inspector screwed up. There's no 2 ways about it. He should have said, we have to condemn the whole building. And your county attorney should have said, you have to condemn the whole building. And you can't say, we'll demolish. You have to say, can repair a tenant-occupied dwelling can't close. How do you know that when the inspector leaves, you don't open it back up? You don't have access. So the reality is that when he goes in front of the board, I send the video of this day because I wanted him on record and Scott Elliott not to be able to spin it out as truth. That's right. I waited until today to get that. So what I'm asking for you to do, and this is a copy of Winterville, and I'm putting the Lynches on notice right now that a magistrate summons is coming and the county attorney and the inspector is going to be witnesses, and we're going to ask them to vacate the building immediately, but the statutes state that your people are supposed to. Did you know that? It says that you're supposed to remove people regardless of what they're thinking that contracts are. Because if it's imminent danger and domain, do you know that the county just bit the farm? You became a conspiracy with the violation. So what I'm asking for you to do is, number one, demolish not demolish. What I'm asking is condemn the whole building and condemn it now. Then I'm asking you to remove the tenants and remove them under the minimum amount of time. They've had 2 years. Then I'm asking you to modify the order, and where it says will demolish, go by statute and say the owner according to general statutes, register of deeds, can repair. And then I'll buy the permit. I'm already working on the plans. But you tell me how this order can stand when I don't have access. Mr. Owens, I need you to defend me, because if I step foot on that property, I'm going to be arrested for trespassing. How about that? I've already got a witness that can say it. So what I'm saying to you guys is read that summary, and then you tell Mr. Rhodes that when a condemnation comes down, tell him to look at the patterns. And if the condemnation for Lot 65 was handled differently, then we've got a problem. If the laws and the things change because of who we are, then we don't have a law. We have a conspiracy to defraud. If Mr. Edwards thought he was right, he would have called me up and said, Miss Harris, you sent in a letter of complaint. In the hearing, he said, somebody complained about illegal addition. That was a lie. I said, there is an addition that's had damage from a storm. I can't get in to see it. We have a tenant that's in violation. If you're going to tell part of the truth, tell it all. So what I'm asking is, number one, uphold the condemnation. I agree, for the entire building, because that's the only way that I'm going to get control. I'm going to do my part and file the eviction. Tomorrow morning, first thing, I'm going to call your people as witnesses. But they put you in this spot because they said that the law was this, and the real law is the truth. If you're going to condemn, if that back section is danger to eminent domain in the life, how in the world can you have a tenant there for almost 12 months, Mr. Owens, and not be a conspire with it? These are the facts. Do you have any questions?
Ms. Ward?
One question. Why could you not get in to see your property?
Because
a year ago or 2 years ago?
I've been chased off. They were in default. They didn't want to pay. And I even went with Don Lewis to talk to him.
Could I continue? And that was the answer I wanted. Did you not, have you evicted someone before from your property?
Whenever you have a land sales contract, and that was basically they were in default of what they were supposed to pay, they're not letting you handle that through small claims anymore.
But I mean, could you have taken the sheriff with you?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
There's no legal provisions except for landlord-tenant laws to get on the property. The only way that I'm going to be able to evict them is that I get a condemned for the entire building. I'm going immediately to social services and tell them they got 3 children. And then from there, we're going to empty the building. If they have some recourse and decide that I've done something that they don't like, they have the recourse of the courts. And I hope they get a paid attorney. I'm tired of these things with free legal help. But the point that I'm making is the process is not the building inspector. He's not supposed to condemn part of a building. He has to either condemn the whole thing, and he has to deal with the owner. That's what the statute states.
I understand that. You
Okay.
answered my question. Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Owens?
Ms. Harris, do you own the land that this home is owned?
I own everything, sir.
All right, did you buy the land and the home all at one time?
No, sir, the actual double wide was bought from a Bobby and a William Civils, and the land itself was bought from a Betty, I think her last name is Haddock.
You bought that later?
No, sir, I actually, well, yes, sir, that's right.
All right. The addition that you show here on the back, was that there when you bought it?
I would say yes.
Don't say just, is it?
It was there, yes.
Okay. And you had nothing to do with construction of the addition on the back?
I did some finishing to it, not construction, sir.
All right.
But this was inspected by Reggie Satterfield, and it passed inspection, sir, and got power. So the inspections department, a licensed inspector, Reggie Satterfield, it was under the name, I'll be glad to give you the inspection reports, but it was under the name of
But
Anthony.
the people that are living in it, we have nothing to do with that.
That's fine.
These commissioners here, about whether they're illegal or whether they're rights or whatever.
That's right.
From my standpoint, I don't know about the other board. But I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, that I want to ask Janice or James, one or the other, at the appropriate time.
I
have no more questions of you.
Go ahead.
Mr. James.
Whose name is on the tax book that pays the property tax?
ProSearch Investments, and then the home is considered personal property. And
Are you involved? I rent property out. It's in my name, and if I tell them to get out, I'm going to give them a certain number of days that I'm going to a magistrate, and he's going to remove them with the help of the sheriff. And it don't take no 90 days now.
Sir, it depends on your contract.
I know that, but the contract here is that they have not fulfilled it. That's the first thing. All right, but what I want to know is who owns that property. That's what I think Commissioner Owens was repeating. I own that pays the taxes, that's on the deed, on that, and of course I know we'd have to know that from the tax office. But I want to know who owns that property, and if ever who owns it, why haven't they gone to a magistrate and took the papers out, paid that to about $85, and then you got nothing to worry about, because that sheriff is going to go there and their butt is going to be gone.
Okay, Commissioner James, maybe you need to be updated with the law.
Wait a minute, I'll deal with it.
Well, actually, there's a difference in a rental contract or an owner finance contract.
This is rental I'm talking about.
The issue is that you're not understanding that the contract provisions have a specific way of handling it. You know, I had hoped that the Lynches would just simply leave, and I had hoped that they would take the options that were available, because I have not chased them, I have not billed them, I just left them alone because I have had some health problems. But the point that I'm making is that it's going to take me 3 months to probably get them out. But all the while, you know that structure is condemned. I can appeal this in court.
You're beating around the bush. Have you gone to the magistrate and took out papers on them?
Sir, I have the papers, and I have...
That's not answer my question.
Sir, I have the papers to do.
All right, and you own that property?
Yes, sir.
To do, not done.
The point that I'm making, sir...
Oh, you haven't done it yet?
Sir, I am filling them out.
Oh,
there is
my
a
goodness,
reason.
all you got to do is to go over there and get it done, and I'm telling you, they're going to be gone if you own that property.
Mr. James, I beg to differ with you. There are appeal processes and everything else. You folks need to read landlord-tenant laws. We need to get back to the real issue. I have no problem with the condemnation, but the statute do not provide for partial condemnation, and it does not provide for an inspector to talk to anybody but the owner about that property. It doesn't provide for an inspector to give false statements as a stop work order. These are the issues that are going before the board. The board, I'm asking, is number 1, condemn the whole structure. Number 2, issue the necessary vacancy of the condemned structure to the tenants. And I will correspond with this eviction process that I'm going to use your own people to have to verify. Number 3, I'm asking that you remove, will demolish and you provide what the statutes provide for, can repair or demolish, because an order is an order, and unless you modify it, I have to comply with it whether or not it's right. And for the things that you don't understand, call me up and I'll explain it. But the bottom line is that you have to comply with landlord-tenant laws. You have to comply with what is condemnation laws, and the condemnation laws do not provide for a part condemnation. This is where we have a problem. I thoroughly thank you for your time, and God bless you.
Before she leaves, may I ask her one thing?
We're not through. Yeah, wait, let me go with Mr. Colson. I had him
I
next.
got you, excuse me.
Well, I'm a little confused because at the beginning you said it was Research Investments that owned it. And then you said that not Brenda Harris. Then just a few minutes ago you said Brenda Harris owned everything, owned the land, owned the building, and so on. So that was confusing to me. And it seems to me that you're being somewhat evasive because of that. Partial condemnation is allowed by statute. You don't have to have the whole building. The building inspector, in my opinion, has not erred. And then as far as this deal, you said it wasn't a rental contract, owner finance, land sales contract?
Okay, Mr. Colson.
Was there a down payment made?
Mr. Colson, may I speak and
Okay.
just answer your questions? Number one, ProSearch Investments is Brenda Harris. It's a private entity that I hold entire amounts. I'm not evasive. If you make your questions clear, I can make
Well,
the answers.
ma'am, I'm just going by what you said at the very beginning.
Number two, partial condemnation can be allowed if there's not a tenant in occupancy, because it's a partial condemnation for ownership. When there is a tenant, then, and if the structure is, quote, deemed a violation.
Janice, I need to ask you a question. She's saying things that, as though she's a lawyer right now. Is what she's saying, I don't know whether you heard what she just said with Scott talking to you, but does the law change if there's a tenant involved as far as partial condemnation? It's not my understanding that that's the case.
No, the law does not change.
So
The law
therefore,
of condemnation does not change.
so therefore,
regardless of
the building inspector did not act improperly by condemning a portion of it, regardless of the fact that there's tenants there. Is that correct?
That's correct, and in fact, the Department of Insurance encourages a partial condemnation if the entire structure, part of it is habitable. They've advised us kind of a minimum necessary type of rule. This is not the first one that's been partially condemned. If there's a part of a structure that can be condemned, the Department of Insurance has condemned that portion that is unsafe to be as least disruptive to the occupants or the owner as possible, and that's what was done in this case, and I believe 4 others in Pitt County are similar, and that it's common practice throughout the state according to the Department of Insurance.
So if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm trying to piece this together. You're saying this was not a rental agreement. This was, it sounded to me like they're buying this place or were planning to buy this place. Is this correct?
They had given me the intention that they wanted to buy it, but I would have to take you back to 153A-369, and it says directed to the owner of the building. It doesn't say directed to the owner of the building, the tenant, or somebody that's just shacking up there. It says the owner of the building, and I would beg to differ with our county attorney that when you have, and you can actually say, it's dangerous to life and health and other property. Now, first of all, you'd have to say what's next to it. If it's dangerous to other property.
Well, you're repeating yourself because you said that earlier, and I don't fully agree with your assessment that our county attorney is wrong. I think she's a studied lawyer and very competent. The question is, you want the whole thing condemned, but I want to go back to this owner finance land sales. So the indication was they were going to buy it. Did they give a down payment?
They gave a down payment and never paid another penny.
Okay.
They were supposed
Were
to
there
have
any
insurance.
extenuating circumstances as to why they did not pay?
Actually, they have a history of eviction according to my research. So I would say that the extenuating circumstances was that they tore the building apart after the storm. They didn't buy insurance when they were supposed to. But these things are not for your county commissioners. You have to go back to, Mr. Owens, how can I do any of the things if I can't go on the property? You know, one law has to be supreme, Mr. Colson, and the law that's supreme is that you go through the judicial process, because this is quasi-judicial. It is not the judicial process. And so your order says, we'll remove. I'm just saying to you is, number one, we've got to have access to be able to repair. Then number two, if it's eminent domain, how can you decide what's dangerous and not? How close is dangerous? Then
Ms. Harris, you're not talking to me, you're talking to another commissioner, you're asking questions of which I'm sure that Mark will be able to answer them in due time. But I want to get back to this owner financing thing. You say they have a history of evictions. Do you have a history of getting people out of, once you get into this contract, do you have signed papers that says that this is an owner, this is a purchase to,
Mr. Colson, most of everybody that has ever left any property of mine had gotten over 12 months of help. And let me just, since you might need to kind of go back to the standpoint that you're not here to decide what the contract is. That is not what the hearing is.
but I think the whole decision that we're about to make centers about that, because you're the one who brought this up, not me. So the owner financing contract, you got in the down payment, they were going to buy it, you said they didn't spend any more money, you said that they, or pay any more, they have a history of evictions, you said you can't get on there. We've had a couple of the people state that, oh yes you can, if you go to the sheriff's department, there's several things you could have done way before now, within the 2-year period, and yet you have not done exercised any of that till now. But you brought up history, their history. I wonder, do you have a history of having people that have such agreements as this, and then you get rid of them in one way, shape, or form, only to enter into another agreement with somebody else?
Mr. Colson, I don't buy property anymore. I liquidate as best I can because I'm retiring. The landlord-tenant laws are different today. But if you wanted to know anything about my personal business, then I would welcome you to talk with my attorney, because that's where I'm going to discuss it.
Well, I find you to be very evasive, and so therefore I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, guys.
Mr. Owens, I believe you had a question.
Ms. Harris, you say you requested that this property be condemned, did you not?
I sent a letter August the 14th because I didn't know the status, sir.
I'm not talking about right reason, rhyme, or you requested that the property be condemned.
The property, the only way that I understood, based on the other example that I had on Lot 65, is that you condemn it, you vacate it, and then repairs can be done.
I'm trying to help you.
Okay.
You're doing the wrong thing when you answer my question.
I would like to condemn it.
You requested this county attorney, this planning board, that you wanted the property condemned.
I want the whole
All right,
property.
now, my next question is this. What you got ordered back was for it to be condemned and destroyed. Is that what you're telling me?
Okay, I got a partial condemnation, and then I got it for that you had to demolish.
All right, that's it. Now what you're requesting this board is that you'd like for the whole building to be condemned with the privilege of repairing it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, as soon as,
Just yes or no?
Yes.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
I just need the access before the time period. If it's 60 days, according to the law, I think that I can buy a permit and it'll extend it. Anything else?
Any further questions? Okay, we've had a lot of discussion on this. What is the pleasure of the
I
board?
want to ask Janice something.
Janice? Okay, yes, proceed.
Did I understand a while ago, Janice, that you said that you can have partial condemnation in Pitt County?
Yes, sir.
Is there the law that it has to be destroyed, or can it be repaired?
The law leaves within the discretion of the inspector the ability to repair it or to order that it be destroyed. So it could be either way, to answer your question. In this particular case, Matt, if I may expand, in this particular case, at the June 3rd appeal hearing, the inspector explained to Ms. Harris as the owner that he would that it was his intention to issue an order to demolish, to remove that addition. But that if she took steps to repair, to please contact him immediately, so as is normal practice, he would work with her so that the proper permits could be issued. She was aware that she had the opportunity to repair. However, the order does say demolish, and the order could have said repair or demolish.
Next question to you. Could this board accept the condemnation or agree with the right to repair it?
Yes.
Next question. This board doesn't have any authority to condemn the front part of that building, do it?
No, only to affirm, modify, or reverse the inspector's order, which is
As
partial.
to the addition.
Correct.
All right. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what she wants is, if you look at the picture, this front part or the back part, I think it's the front part, they have added it to it. They added it to it without a permit. They broke the law. Let's face it, I deal with it.
William Civils broke the law.
Wait, let me finish. They broke the law. And what she wants, from what I gather, I don't think we had no business in getting involved. I think that's a bunch of baloney you coming up here for us. But that place, she wants that destroyed, and the other part of that double wide to remain there so that it can be repaired and used. I think that's what she really has in mind. Am I not correct?
No, sir, you're not. We're saying.
You're going to
that we
condemn
want-
the whole thing and tear all of it down.
No, sir.
No, you're
sir.
not.
No, sir. You condemn the whole thing so you can get access. Access
Wait.
has to be done, and then you repair.
You don't even own the property, do you?
I do, sir. My God, don't you listen?
I listen, and I listen well.
You represent
I
me.
asked you the deed. Whose name's on the deed?
Pro Search Investment, which is Brenda Harris, sir.
All right. Okay.
Okay,
I won't say nothing else. Let's
Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Ward.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend that the order of the building inspector be affirmed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Madam Attorney.
May I clarify for your record, I guess during this discussion part, the research that the county has done with regard to ownership, that the land itself is in the name of Research Investments, as she said. The mobile home, according to the DMV records, remains in the name of the Civils, which is the party from whom Ms. Harris purchased the mobile home, but that Ms. Harris has possession of the title itself. And so based upon our research, we have determined the ownership by virtue of her physical possession of the title, although DMV still has it in the name of the Civils. Thank you.
The bottom line.
Does that impact the motion?
No, it
That
just
is-
clarifies
okay.
your record.
Okay, fine. You've had a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
The only thing, the trail means nothing. Everyone who owns that property, because that's the trail you move, mobile home, you should move it there. Everyone who owns that land is the one who's in control. Guarantee you.
It's me.
Okay.
Whatever who, I don't know.
Any further discussion? Let's vote. Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the introduction of the order authorizing the $19.9 million Pitt Community College bond, and Mr. Holder is going to present that. This is an item we have discussed at our last couple of meetings, and I think this is just the legal process we're going through to get this on the referendum in November.
Correct. This is just the next step in the process to get this on the referendum. What it does is basically say that upon the affirmative vote of the voters, that you would authorize us to enter into the contract for the debt, to which would include the levy of additional taxes to cover the principal and interest. It also announces in a public hearing on August the 19th at 6:00 p.m. In addition, it authorizes myself to enter or to record with the clerk to the board a sworn statement of debt of the county.
Do I have a motion that we recommend the approval of the introduction of the bond order? Yes, excuse me. Okay, we have a motion. Second.
I got one question.
Yes.
What did you say about levying taxes?
If you'll look on page 176, item number 2, that taxes shall be levied in an amount sufficient to pay the principal of and the interest on said bonds.
But we won't vote on that until after the November election. Then we will make that decision.
Correct.
Well, that's what caught my
Yes,
ear
sir.
when you said, I won't vote in the levying the taxes.
No, we're not doing that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask the county attorney if this proposal is what she approves.
Yes, sir, it is. It was prepared by bond counsel. It complies with the law, and that wording is statute-driven.
Yes. That was, I thought that was true, and that's the basis upon which I made the motion.
Mr. Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to briefly just restate my objection, not to the project, but to an unelected body asking the taxpayers to raise taxes on themselves. Thank you.
Any further? Yes.
Just wanted the attorney to just address a new public notice requirement of letting the public know that we have to pay the principal and the interest. Can you?
Actually, there's two parts to that. One, the law has changed, which requires the notice to advise the taxpayers on the referendum that they would have to repay, the county would be repaying the principal and the interest, and that you're pledging the taxing power in a general obligation bond. I've had further clarification in speaking with bond counsel that law goes into effect September 1st. And since this order, if the board approves it today, will take place before then, that would not technically be applicable to our issue, but that our wording does specify and reiterates that we're pledging the taxing power and that we're repaying the principal and interest.
Any further questions or discussion? Yes.
I want to say this, of course, I do support Pitt Community College. I think it's a good thing, but I think our ad valorem taxes is high enough, and that's my feeling.
And just point of clarification, you will be presented with a formal bond order at the next meeting for signature.
And the only thing we're doing now is just abiding by the legal requirements to get this on the referendum in November. Then after that, we have a real decision to make. Correct?
Correct.
Very
And
good.
this is not, I mean, I think the viewers, just what you just said, are hearing tax levied, whatever, and that is not happening.
No.
We are just giving the voters in Pitt County a right to vote on this in a bond referendum.
Right. Correct. Any further discussion? I think we've had a motion and a second, so let's vote.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can I just mention, as it says in the abstract attachments, your next meeting, which will be August 19th, there will be a public hearing on this matter. So those members of the public that want to come and comment on this for or against will have that opportunity.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holder. The next item is appointment to our Social Services Board.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Melanie Bryan.
I have a nomination for Melanie Bryant. Second. Any further nominations? Well, let's vote on Ms. Bryant.
Mr. Chairman, the effective date on that, I believe she was wanting to continue serving on the ABC board through the end of August.
It'll be September.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you. The next item is an appointment to the North Carolina Eastern Regional Board. And the recommendation there is we reappoint Mr. Edwards.
I make that motion.
Have a motion. Any
Second.
further?
Second.
Okay, let's vote. Thank you.
If it's still in existence.
Thank you. The next one is a reappointment to the Pitt County Nursing Home and Adult Care Advisory Board, and you see that recommendation on page 194, which I believe is Mrs. Patty Littery.
I so nominate her
Leary.
to be continue on the board.
Okay, we have a nomination. Any further? Let's vote. Thank you, Mr. James. Okay, the next item is two appointments. Mr. James, you need to vote on that.
I hit it 3 times.
Okay, thank you. Next item is reappointment to the Pitt Greenville Convention and Visitors Authority. There are two reappointments on there, Beatrice Henderson and Candace Hollingsworth. What is your pleasure?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion, okay, let's vote. David?
David.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else on our agenda except for a closed session. Madam Attorney, will you take us into closed session, please?
Yes, sir. It has been suggested that this board go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A4 to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body, and also under 143-318.11A1 to prevent the disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States and not considered to be a public record.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session? Second. Let's vote. Okay, we're now in the closed session. Welcome back to our August the 5th Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting. We have one item of business to take care of after our closed session. Mr. Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Make a motion that we approve the June 17th, 2013 closed session minutes as to the content only.
Have a second. Any discussion? Let's vote.
I don't believe it. I did it.
Okay, thank you. The last item on our agenda for this morning is our commissioner comments. We'll begin with Mr. Webb.
No comments, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McGlaughlin?
No comment.
Mr. Johnson?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I would like those who are here in this meeting to know that our chairman is a smart person. On a regular basis, I believe it's 3 times a week, he jogs on his property. And in a discussion with him recently, I learned that from adjacent property, he had a mother and 2 cubs show up. And the chairman of this board was smart enough to get out of the way.
You're right there.
And I think he was smart to get out of the way. And some people don't get out of the way when they see a mother and cubs. But the chairman of this board got out of the way, and I wanted to mention that.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Owens?
I wouldn't tell him anything else.
Okay. Ms. Ward?
No comments.
Mr. Colson?
Nothing.
Even though I think
I have a comment this time. I believe by some way that we should let the people in Raleigh know that maybe I should say that I am very much disappointed in some of the things that they have done up there towards public education. I believe that when a person wants to better themselves by getting a master's degree as a teacher, that they should get that extra pay. I believe that North Carolina is now probably the only state in the United States that lost that pay and does not, these teachers will not get it. They have no incentive to take and to further their education to be a better teacher. Through some way, I think that we ought to let them know that this is the wrong way to go, that we here in Pitt County do not want to destroy public education because that's the road that we are on, unless there are some changes made. And I believe those who are in power do not realize how important this is, how important it is for public schools. And I don't, as I said, Mr. Chairman, I don't generally speak up so much for education, but I believe being in education and having a master's degree. I wouldn't have got it if I hadn't got that extra pay. And I believe this will also affect these teachers. It will affect East Carolina, the number that will be enrolled in the master's program, or other schools as well. And I think some way, through some source, that we ought to let this be known, and especially for for the university, it's affecting them a great deal. The Broder School of Medicine, all of them, I think they did reinstate the money back to the Broder School of Medicine after they took it out. But I don't know. But I think we ought to be really concerned and not sit back here and not say anything about it. I really do. And I think we elected those people to go up there, and I think they ought to represent not one person in Raleigh, but they ought to represent the citizens here in Pitt County. I really believe that very strongly.
Very good. Mr. Hammond?
No, I don't have a comment.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Let's vote. Thank you.
High school.